about that. You've been a part of huge box office successes, theatrical movies here. Why was this important too, on all those levels, to succeed like this?
Well, good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for that lovely, warm welcome. But if I start to slur, I just got off the plane coming from Malaysia to Hong Kong to here, so I came from the airport. But I'm really, really happy to be here. Yeah.
Could have fooled me.
This Sunday has become very long. I left on Sunday and it's still Sunday. It was so important, I swear to God, that first weekend at the box office. I mean, when we set out to do the movie, we knew it was special. We knew it was a great opportunity because we were working with an all-Asian cast from a global cast from around the world. And this was the first time even for me to be involved in that way. I was on my knees praying that weekend because the results meant so much to us. God forbid if we had failed. It would have knocked all the Asian films back another 25 years. So it was very, very, very important. But we really had such a good movie. I mean, you can't create the box office because the audience is very, they have choices. And it is an effort to go to the cinemas. You must love the whole process of it. And if they walk away not satisfied, you know right away, because in today, the word of mouth goes by so quickly. Thank God to Nina and John Chu. You came out with such a inclusive movie. It transcends the race. You forget what it is. It sets the tone and it transcends all the generations. The kids love it, the adults love it, and then they all watch it with each other. It's such a great shared experience of a feel-good movie. And we've been lacking in that, like the rom-com, like you say, It's been a long time since, you watch a love story. And it's all about love on all the different levels. The love within the family, true love, romantic love, and then, of course, the consumption of food and jewelry and fashion and all these kind of wonderful things.
Consumption in this movie is beyond.
That's why we're called the Crazy Rich Asians.
I'll say right from that opening sequence, you see how crazy rich, and she knows. What I loved about your character, Eleanor, though, is, you could look at her in some other ways if it was done the wrong way as a one-dimensional kind of villain, if you want to use that word. She's not at all. She is a strong-willed mother who's trying to keep her family together and all of that, who thinks she knows what's best for her son, has spent all this time and effort doing that. And that comes across all the way through. She's a fully human being here that you see on screen.
Thank you. That's really my homage to all the mothers in the world. Because it's true. I mean, I think all mothers protect their child. And Kevin did write an incredible character. I mean, from the prologue and the book, he had me there already, when she bought the hotel.
Right.
So she is such a powerful human being. And I needed her to come across as that, but not just being a mean mother. That's not her intention. Her motivation always comes from love, whether it's for love for her son. And she, at the end, recognized the strength in this young lady, which she thought that she couldn't have. Because in our society, we do become very cliquey. We stay within our own group and things like that. And she felt that this young girl would be a fish out of water, which she would be, because, there's so many traditions that we have to live by. So she was such a fabulous character to play because there were so many nuances, and thanks to Nina and John, because when we first spoke about it, because from the book, it was a powerful character. But how do we make her a little bit more complex? And the addition of the mother-in-law, which constantly reminded her, you're really not good enough, you still haven't got it right after so many years. So she felt for Rachel, almost I don't think you want to be in this position, seriously, because it's a lot about putting someone, the whole family, before yourself, that sacrifice. And she felt that she wasn't doing a sacrifice. It was a privilege for her. But would you be able to do that? That was her question to Rachel at that point. But she was scary though when she came at her. You will never be enough.
Yeah. She is. She carries herself like that too. But boy, that mahjong game, the complexity between you and the way it was played with the game, with the. I don't play mahjong. My wife does so. But it's like boom, ba boom. Yeah, I mean that was riveting to watch. The rhythm of it, the rhythm of the acting.
You know, the way that John never explained. We never explained. Okay, what is
John
mahjong? Otherwise, it will be John Chu. Because you know. You just assume you should know this, and if you're interested, you will learn the game. And it's a very fascinating game which we play all the time. But it is a game of strategy, you know. And so through that game, it was a confrontation, and it was very, very well executed.
Beautifully. It's a very loud game too.
Oh yeah.
Michelle really had really thoughtful notes about, because it's very easy to have the obstacle between lovers to just feel like it's easy to hate whoever is the obstacle, you know, and the idea of that what makes a great obstacle is that there's an enormous pull, and there had to be a real desire to see that you don't want him to lose his family. Right. And it would be very easy to just say, well, you know, they don't get it, they don't get you, they don't get this relationship, and they're focused on the wrong things, and to root against them. But you had to understand why that would be an enormous loss, and that would elevate Rachel for her to not want him to lose that, but that and then that the differences were not just about class, but more about culture. And I think that, you know, the book leans in on class a lot, and the movie obviously has a lot to say about class, but leans in even more on culture. And Michelle really, you know, throughout the process kept pushing for that complexity and for the Eleanor should have a legitimate point. That would be much more powerful than if she was just sort of lost in the past or lost in her own biases.
Yeah. The casting's great, right down the line. Henry Golding, how many are new Henry Golding fans now? He was like a travel host or something, wasn't an actor, and you just like found him.
Yeah, we knew obviously the casting Nick, you know, was very particular what Nick had to be. He had to be incredibly, obviously handsome and appealing, but down to earth. You had to feel like you'd be a guy who you could have a beer with or find him on a basketball court, but he could also show up in a tuxedo and have a James Bond quality. Like, how would you be all of those things?
No challenge there for your casting.
And then he had to have the anglicized English, so it ruled out a bunch of amazing Chinese-born actors who might not have had English as a first language and who couldn't do that anglicized accent. So that was, whereas there are, you know, so many incredible Chinese-born actors, if the accent wasn't right, it wouldn't be a plausible Singaporean character. And so we were reading all different people, and actually, yeah, one of the accountants in our production office was like, well, there's this guy.
She was in Malaysia at the time, so was more aware of him than we would have been.
Right. And so John stalked him on social media.
Yeah.
And
He said no at the first time. He thought it was like, it's too big for me, I can't. And John convinced him.
Yeah.
He insisted he read.
John is very convincing.
What was he like to work opposite of as a first-time actor?
You know, when we were doing a scene, I suddenly looked at him and thought, he reminded me so much like Ang Lee.
Oh.
It's amazing. Yeah, John Chu, not this John.
Yeah.
No.
No, I'm talking about John Chu.
Oh, yes.
The way he directs, the way he's so mesmerized with details and things like that. He really, I walked up to him and thought, I just saw a young Ang Lee walk past me.
Wow.
Yeah. He was wonderful to work with. He's very engaging. At the same time, he's very clear with what he wants. But he would discuss with you and see how you could explore, you know, other options. And this is something that we as actors, you know, we get lost in our own world thinking that we know everything. But he is the captain of the ship, so he really has to be the one to navigate the waters. So I really, really had a good time working with him.
I want to get some questions from the audience, but I have to ask one thing. How do I get myself invited to a wedding like that?
Must
that
know
happening
Crazy
all
Rich
over
Asians.
China right
I just want to go and sit in the shrubbery, and you walk down the water. A $40 million wedding, supposedly. Wow. I thought the production design in this movie was exceptional. I do a shout out to Nelson Coast.
Yeah, especially so much of it we shot in Kuala Lumpur. So we only had, of our 8 weeks, we were 5 in Kuala Lumpur and Malaysia, 3 in Singapore. So we pretend to be many places that we're not. And Nelson just had an enormous imagination. So that jewelry store is a bar in a hotel that he could see. I love those doors. Those doors will be great, and we'll put shelves in here. We'll take out all their furniture and converted a bar and a restaurant into a jewelry store, and did that at every turn. Just could always sort of see what something could become, and was really great at pulling off the fake.
It's just epic on the screen. It's just so lush, and the costumes, the production value across the board is really exceptional. Now, do you guys have any questions out here? Or just continue staring at us like this. Nobody has any questions. Oh, yes, right here. Hi.
Hi, good evening. That Mahjong scene that you guys did, how intense was it? Because I went to an event where Kevin was talking about it, but I wanted to hear your side. Like, how was it filming? I mean, when you guys were filming it, what was that scene like? How intense was it?
How intense was the Mahjong scene when you were filming it, in terms of that?
Constance, I was going to call her Rachel. Constance is wonderful to work with. She's such a talented actress. And when we sat down on it, John basically said, "You girls go for it." And I think the most important thing is we both knew our characters so well but it's like always, it's the nuances that makes it believable, right? You felt the love that she had for my son. And at the same time, you felt how she was struggling to keep herself under control as well. And I think it was because having that game, that movement, yet within the turmoil that was inside the two of us, just like and never exploding, made it much more powerful. So there was things happening. It's like, home, I want this, I'm taking it from you now, and you're taking it back, and I'm taking it again. That was the physical side that was going on. It's like if I was doing an action movie, it would be that sparring, ta 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 ta. But at the same time, but here it wasn't with hands or whatever, but it was with the words and the meaning behind it all. It's like, I'm willing to give it all up. And one day you will look back and you will remember me. So it hits, that was the moment when she felt, this girl is something. She is willing to sacrifice her love because she doesn't want to put my son in a very hard place. So it was very, very beautiful, and it was not in the book. This was something that you all created, and it works so well. It sort of ties in with the beginning of the movie where she was teaching about poker, and then at the end you wrap it up. It comes almost like a full circle, regardless of whether you are living in New York or in Asia. The sentiments, the feeling is the same.
Was Constance Wu always your first choice in this role? She's obviously, we know her from Fresh Off the Boat currently, but was she the one that you were always looking at?
She was sort of the template of the character. It would be like someone like Constance Wu, and then to her credit, she actually, before we really even started auditioning people, she wrote this really impassioned email to John saying why she felt like it had to be her and how much it meant to her and why it meant so much to her, and she just put her heart on her sleeve in a way that very few actresses are willing to do. And she just put herself out there early on and made the case as well, once she saw the movie was coming together, that we should wait for her.
So you waited for her?
We waited for her. We had to wait about 5 months for her to finish her show. But she really was that all-American girl. She was the girl next door. That's really what you had to feel like, I know this girl. I've gone to school with this girl, I live near this girl, I know this girl, and she has a very all-American quality.
Cool. Yes, right there.
It was really funny. I was wondering how much improv was it with the cast? And how much rehearsal time did everybody have together? Because it felt so everybody just meshed together just perfectly, and that's really I thought made it just super funny.
How much improv and how long was the shooting schedule, by the way?
We were
8 weeks.
Yeah, 8 weeks.
8 weeks. So did you have rehearsal time or?
There was a fair amount, maybe a week or so. But John was very clever in casting, at least on the comedic side, Awkwafina, Ken, Nico, people who really have chops. And the vast amount was scripted. However, there's clearly some terrific work by Ken and Awkwafina in particular, but he just knew they were secret weapons. And he,
How do you script some of those things that they did?
It was really funny. I was stunned how funny it was.
That's great.
I didn't know. You don't see that.
Because they're really, really smart as well.
Yeah, you don't see that much funny anymore. It was hilarious. So congratulations.
But it's hard working with them when they're always going off. Okay, please come back.
Come back to the, yeah.
Oh yeah, hi.
What kind of responses in like China and other Asian countries have they had towards this?
Interesting question. He's wondering what the response is in China and Asian countries. I don't think it's played China yet, right? I mean, there's all kinds of rules to get a run.
We just got our go-ahead.
You just got your go-ahead for China.
And so that's November 30th, and that's its own boondoggle to figure that out. But the rest of Asia, we've had pretty great results. Like Singapore, not surprisingly, it's the biggest romantic comedy I think ever. Malaysia, gigantic. Philippines, gigantic. Indonesia, which we have to deal with, all kinds of advertisements for like products are out there, just completely stealing the poster and having images of actors or models in the same kind of pose as Henry. Yeah, so there's been terrific, I mean, crazy. And they're just selling like Downy, just like in Subway with a poster. Someone's got to do something. So there has been great uptake. China will be interesting because it will be a big release. It's the 30th. However, it's very hard to have visibility sometimes you don't have a lot of time to promote it. It's just, we found out last week and it comes out November 30th. However, we know that it's been a big talking point, at least in social media and et cetera, so there is awareness.
But it's also, they have no shortage of, representation on screen, and so and so the fact that here, it was such a long drought, and it meant so much for Asian Americans to see themselves on screen. I was told that people could not think of any movie where an Asian man and an Asian woman kissed each other on screen in an American film. You would never really think about that, but apparently that's extraordinarily rare, and so obviously that's not the case. In a lot of the Asian markets, they have a ton of choices, and so the movie there plays in a different way and means something else and plays as a romantic comedy and also a Hollywood offering of the Hollywood version of these stories, which I think some people bring a lot of curiosity to and some people bring some cynicism to. And so I think it plays differently in all those places than it does here.
Okay, yes.
You had 8 weeks to shoot this film, so you really had a chance to come together as a group. So for Michelle, what was it like when the cameras weren't rolling and the bonding that went on, and like who had the party trailer and what that was like?
Okay, so who has the biggest trailer and
Don't look at me, okay?
where's the party going on and what was it like off
The boys. I would be like, I think you guys finished work a long time ago. They'd still be in the room playing computer games together. So they bonded so well. They went to karaoke, they went having midnight snacks and food all the time, constantly. Unfortunately, I was not so, I didn't get such a good time. My role was technically more serious, so every time I walked in, it was very serious.
Oh, here she is again.
There she is. Everybody. But at that time, I was straddling two movies. So I was filming in China for a movie by Master Yuen Woo-ping, and that was an action movie, Yip Man, the spin-off of Yip Man. So I had to remind myself when I was Eleanor Young was don't get physical. Don't suddenly go, wow, oh, sorry, wrong movie. That would not have been good for the show.
That is the inevitable sequel.
But when we were on set, it was a love fest. Everybody had such a great time, and I think what they really appreciated was, you know, the local artists, the actors from Singapore and Malaysia welcomed their counterparts from around the world because they were so happy to finally work with Asian actors from around the world and to be in a studio film, which was the first for quite a few of them, even though they've been in the business for a long time. And I think for the American, the Australian actors to come here, it was a little bit of a culture shock as well. You know, it was like, because even though they are Asians, but they have always lived in a very foreign environment, a different kind of environment. But at the end of the day, you could see they were exchanging, wow, you know what it is to be a minority in America. And then when you come here, they're like, we're Chinese, how can we be a minority? It just doesn't work like that, right? I just came from China, I'm definitely not a minority. So it was very, very interesting, but once they got together, and up to today, we all still have a group chat that every morning when I wake up, it's like 50 messages. Oh yeah, and they are,
It's an unusually close group because it's different than other movies in that we had this big cast, but we were so far away and we didn't have a lot of money, and so people came and stayed. And so you have this big ensemble, and many of them would go weeks where they weren't working but didn't go home. And so the people who weren't working were always running around and doing karaoke and, you know, going out eating and traveling and checking things out. And then the people who were working would, you know, meet up with them later. But it's a much closer group than almost anything I've ever worked on because we were all so far from home. And then we had people who were at home who welcomed us and hosted us and wanted to show us all the things that they loved about where they lived. And so usually, you know, a cast like this, actors come in, they work a few days, and then they go home and they're blocked out. But we didn't have the money to block people out. We only had we knew we had to work with Michelle's schedule, so she was the person that we worked around. And then everybody else just hung out.
And it was great to hear a lot of the cast members who hadn't worked with other Asian cast members. So they were always, in a lot of the Western productions, the token Asian person. So there was a real, I think, joy and appreciation that they're friendly to everybody, but that this was just a big Asian cast, all sharing this experience together. From the outside, that was palpable to see that and to appreciate that.
Well, the amazing thing is we don't have to wait 25 years for another all-Asian cast because I'm sure you smart producers already have the sequel in line, right? You're going to do another one, right?
Our hope is actually to do the second and third together.
Wow.
Because we do have such a big cast. So that's our hope. Yeah, that's our hope. So we're going to develop both the scripts and then hopefully get them both right. And then, because it is such a big cast and John's in a lot of demand, and to pull together this many popular, beloved actors and get them together, you know, for enough time, our hope is that we're going to develop both the second and the third books at the same time into scripts, and then hopefully get them both right and be able to figure out a way to shoot them all as one big movie so that we can release them closer together, but also, like I say, we have this great cast, all of whom are blowing up in different ways, and just to be able to get them all back twice, it would be easier to get them back once.
And read the books. The two other books in the trilogy are just terrific. I mean, he really is. He got better and better.
Can't wait. Thanks, guys, for coming.